Good morning.
Good morning to you. The first question that I have is what brought you to Rio Rancho, and what is kind of your favorite thing about doing business here?
What brought me to Rio Rancho? Well, being in the restaurant business and industry and working in it and owning places in Albuquerque also, Rio Rancho was so unsaturated as Albuquerque is, as so many businesses and so many competitive businesses, that Rio Rancho 11, 12 years ago was on the cusp of really becoming a very bright city. And that was one of the reasons that drew me up to start off on a bottom rung.
And what was your favorite thing about it?
Can I interrupt just a second?
Sure.
Can you talk a little louder because I'm the hard time hearing the back?
All right.
Thank you.
And so what is your favorite thing about doing business here at Rio Rancho?
The community in Rio Rancho is exactly that. You can really touch the community. When people come into your establishment, you know where you can identify them or recognize them from where they work or from where they go to school. Or as time goes on, you get to really recognize people, and I feel that's lost in larger cities. So this city is very tight-knitted and very close. Even here, I mean, I look around and I see people that I see all the time, and that's just a wonderful part of doing business.
You talked about how your experience in the restaurant business, and this is something where you're serving food to the public, and their opinion can be your best friend or your worst enemy. What has been your leadership style that you've used with your employees to ensure that attention to detail that has brought you so much success?
I think the culture that we've tried to establish in the restaurant itself is one of a sincerity that when someone does walk through the door, they have chosen us, and not to be cliché, but they truly have chosen you for that evening or for that lunch. And what an opportunity to be able to take care of somebody on a one-to-one basis. So the culture that we have tried to build is one of sincerity.
And who has been your mentor, or who has inspired you over the years?
I've had two, and they're both family members. My grandfather came from Sicily, as well as my father, under very trying times. My grandfather came in 1918 to this country, left his family in Sicily to start a better life here, and then eventually was able to bring everybody over. They all became citizens, worked very hard. But the opportunity that they saw that was more difficult for other generations prior to see, basically because of what they came from. They came from nothing and came to a country with a huge amount of opportunity. So being able to work hard and understand that you can really achieve just about anything you want to achieve, regardless of education. My grandfather had a second-grade education and became a home builder, was very successful. My other mentor is my uncle, my mother's brother, who was one of the first people to graduate from college in our family, and is now a professor at Pratt University, a fine art university. He also teaches in Italy. So those two folks, and he was able to teach me not to compromise. If you have a thought or vision, you don't need to compromise yourself. Just follow that vision and just keep going.
Great. You talked a little bit about family, and I know that you and Casey run Joe's Pasta House together. I know some of us here in Visionaries have partners that we run our business with as well. What has been the dynamic, and what kind of rules maybe do you guys put in place to have that type of relationship, type of work balance?
I think both Casey and I have established what our strengths are at the restaurant. And Casey is she's a very bubbly, happy person that loves to honestly speak with people on a very sincere level, as we were talking before. So that is her forte in the restaurant. She has developed so many friends that have just been customers and have become friends to her. And that's really been her forte. She also takes care of all of my marketing. and things like that. She's very good at doing advertising and those types of things. So I think we have a, I'm more kitchen oriented, and that's my training. So we have a great balance on what we do in those.
I've actually found a bunch of great user reviews on the internet about Joe's Pasta House. But how has the use of the internet and public opinion, how has the restaurant business changed over the years since you first got into it? And what kind of advice would you give to somebody that wanted to start a restaurant now today?
Well, I think Facebook and those types of things, which I was really aware of but didn't know how to use, and that's where Casey has done such an incredible job of bringing those things into the restaurant. I'm old school. I still write things down. I finally got a smartphone, and it's about 2 years ago, and I still don't know how to use it. But, so she's really helped us in that realm, and I never realized, how much those things, Google and Yahoo and Facebook, and all of those things really touch so many people. I had no idea. So those types of things have enhanced our business greatly. So my advice would be, for any type of business, not only a restaurant, is sometimes you put the cart before the horse. Those things are so important to be involved in, and I'm learning all of that now. So I would suggest those types of medias are very important.
Debbie had mentioned your commitment to the community. What has that brought to your business, or what kind of impact do you think that has made with Joe's Pasta House?
Well, the community is what supports us. Without the community, there is no businesses of any sort. Giving back to the community is probably one of the most important things that I believe any business person can do. And I emphasize that, and we so try to not disassociate it from your business, but it doesn't always have to be where your business is what is portrayed and what you're doing with the community. We kind of like to do it under the radar. It's not an advertisement. It has to be sincere. And so doing things back to the community are very important to us for personal reasons also. The community supports us. It supports 22 people in the restaurant and their families. We have seen people that have worked for us that have had babies and bought houses and new cars, and have really, on an economic level, become wonderful citizens in this community. And to give back, even for them to give back, they all volunteer and help whenever we do. But it is so important to do so, and the rewards are so great. Not only heartfelt, of course, but the rewards are so great. It's almost too expensive to even speak about it. It's just a great feeling to be able to give back and not have a name attached to it.
Great. Does anybody have any questions for Joe that you want to ask?
Are you planning on opening any other restaurants in the near future?
We had a second restaurant at the Santa Ana casino for a while, 5 years ago, I believe it was. We're looking. We're always looking to possibly have another location. The only drawback to that is our style of operation is one of where when you come in the door, I'd like to greet you. It's real difficult to do if you have two locations. So Casey was running the one in the casino for a while, and so she was doing exactly the same things that I was doing. But we continue to look. If the opportunity comes up, we'll take a close look at it. Right now, we're looking at, Casey is working with some of the folks at HP to maybe be doing some lunches and things up at HP, which is, HP has been a phenomenal part of this community, and we'd like to be involved with them. Yeah.
What has been your motivation to be on the board of the chamber and be so involved with the chamber?
You know, when I was in business in Albuquerque and part of that chamber for a while. I wasn't on the board there, but a member. And in watching the chamber work here, I don't know how many years I've been involved as a member of the chamber. It's been quite a long time. But I've always told Debbie that when I wrote that first check, and back when you first start a business, every little bit you write on a check, it's tough. When I wrote that first check, I could not believe the amount of business that came my way because of the chamber and the way the chamber operates. Debbie Moore runs the chamber like I've never seen a chamber run before. So being able to be involved in that on a greater level and accepting to become a board member was more of an opportunity, and maybe a little bit selfish, to learn a little bit more about how those things operate in this community. I would advise anybody, going back to a prior question of what to do when you get into business, is to get involved in the chamber and utilize all of the great programs that it has that are attached to it for business.
When we go into your restaurants, just like going into a restaurant in Little Italy in New York, it's just so wonderful. Your wait staff is exceptional.
Thank you.
What do you do when you bring people in? Is it a wait staff you've had a long time? And with your training?
Training is minimal, to be honest with you. We have a culture that we ask everybody to be involved in, and you're just going to find personalities that either will be involved in it or won't. And over the years, we have a lot of longevity in the restaurant. John, my head waiter, has been with me over 6 years. Rick in the back is almost 12 years with me, and we, Zach has been with me for 9 years. So what happens is water seeks its own level. So those people are really the trainers. Again, we just have an overall idea of how we want to take care of people when they walk into the restaurant. Thank you.
Adrian, let me make a comment following up to your question, because I know Joe won't. Every Thanksgiving, this has been the second, we're working on the third. He called me and he said, I really want to do something for families. Not, there are other venues. He wanted to bring families into the restaurant to have that feeling of sort of a fine dining experience. And so we work with the schools to get this done. The key to the employee thing, his employees volunteered to help. And they were there, Rick was there cooking, and not all of them, but about 7 or 8 volunteered their time. That's the culture he's talking about. And it's this guy right here. He and Casey lead by example. But Bill and I went down there to help, and we didn't have to do anything because his wait staff had volunteered. So that's the culture he has brought to the table. And that's because of him, and he won't say that, but he leads by example. And it's the continuity of it all. And I think that's what we all want in our places of business, is that ability to have a staff that is also willing to volunteer and go beyond, and that camaraderie and the culture you have in any of your businesses. That's what you want. You want. It comes from leading by example, and this guy leads by example.
Thank you. And if you could help us with that program, it's a program that both Casey and I are we've had some people that really are in need. But anyway, if you can help us with it, what we try and identify is people that not necessarily aren't working, but just maybe can't afford to go to a restaurant during the year, have a slew of children and houses and cars and working hard, and the economic atmosphere has hurt that a little bit. Or, people that really can't afford anything. So we open our doors on Thanksgiving, not, because of course, that day is of thanks. But we want to identify those people. And that was the hardest thing we could do. I mean, we can cook in a restaurant. We have the tables, we have the chairs, we have the plates, we have the forks and knives and napkins and all of that thing. It's identifying those people, and we all can probably identify at least one family that we can invite. and I'll ask you all to help me with that this coming Thanksgiving, to invite a family to come and enjoy Thanksgiving dinner with us. We appreciate it.
Sandy?
Just a comment, Andrew and Joe. One of the things that I miss in just shopping and retail nowadays is years ago there were these little dress shops in just about every town. There were boutique stores. You could go to a boutique store, and if you didn't feel like trying on clothes, you could just sign a ticket and take it home. You could try it on there and bring it back and like take it home. I know it seems just crazy, doesn't it? It's wonderful. And that to me was something that those stores can do above and beyond what a Walmart, what a Dillard's, what any other big box kind of store can do. And I was in Joe's Pasta House a few years ago with a client, and we were having appetizers, and we looked at the appetizer menu and just didn't really see anything that we wanted. Joe came over and he said, what do you want? And I said, I'm not really seeing it. And he went to the kitchen and made something special for us. He created an appetizer kind of on the fly for us. And I remember thinking at that point in time that we could just replicate that across every business that we go into. Because that was really above and beyond. He could have just looked at me and said, sorry, Sandy, glad you're here. We're on the menu, but he didn't do that. And that goes above and beyond to the leadership by example. Because leadership by example is a wonderful thing that everybody recognizes you're doing it. But if you truly lead and you really do manage from the top down, or from the top out, say top down, top out, I think that's a perfect example. He waited on us. He went back to the kitchen. He took care of it. It wasn't just a staff member. So certainly when they see that, if a person on your staff can't do that, they're not going to last. So I just want to share.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have a question? I wanted to read a review, Joe, and I just wanted to get your reaction to this. It said, Joe and some of his staff have become almost like family to us since we moved to the area more than 3 years ago. This is an outstanding New York-style Italian food with intensely favored sauces, baked ziti, and eggplant parmesan like I've never tasted before. His veal dishes are superb, and there are some excellent California wines on the menu. Tiramisu and cannolis on the dessert menu. Yum. Make this place a regular habit. What are your thoughts on that?
Is it my mom that wrote Well, I mean, that's what we strive for. We strive to be able to create, I'm an old-fashioned kind of guy and grew up in the 60s. And, there weren't corporate restaurants, and they were just mom and pops. So you want to create what you can create, and hopefully everybody will like it, and businesses can be discouraging at times. I mean, I was telling someone a story. The epitome of the restaurant business was I had a couple come in one night, husband and wife, in their mid-60s, maybe early 70s, and both of them ordered lasagna. And I tend to go to every table and see how everybody's doing. So I walked over to the table and I said, "How's everything tonight?" And the husband said, "This is the worst lasagna I've ever eaten." And the wife said, "This is the best lasagna." So there you go. I mean, that's it. That sums up almost every business that you can think of. You're gonna please some people, and you're not gonna be able to please others. And if you get discouraged by that, you shouldn't, because as long as from the heart you're doing everything you possibly can in your mind and in your heart. That's it.
Elizabeth?
Well, I guess just to sort of piggyback off of what you just mentioned, a lot of us are learning how to accept defeat and accept challenges that come our way. And how do you sort of, when you fall, dust your pants off, get back up, and move forward? Like, what motivates you? And, when you do get those bad reviews, how do you...
Don't take the emotion out of it. I think it has to be emotional. I mean, whenever I get a bad review, it hurts. It truly hurts. But you have to, from an intellectual standpoint, then blend both of those things together. Keep the emotion and keep the intellect, and say, okay, how do is it something that I really need to take a close look at? Is it justified? And of course, you can tell if it is. And if it is, then you have to make a choice. But how do you fix it? some of those things are going to just knock you back all the time because you're working hard and you're striving and it's truly heartfelt. But just get through it. You have to get through it. So yeah. So look at it closely. Keep the emotion in it and say, I really need to look at this. I can't just blow it off, because a lot of people do. I mean, we see that in some places that you go to. I mean, we all have stories where you go in and they could care less. And people could care less. So do we go back? Do we decide to do business again with those folks? So if you truly are caring about it and then can say, okay, I do have something I need to fix, or no, I don't. Not every bad review is truly a bad review. You know what I mean? So just move on, move through it, and look at it. I hope I answered your question.
Tell me about catering, weddings, that it's more than just a restaurant.
Yeah, well, we have a complete catering company that's attached to the restaurant, where we do, weddings and graduations. Oh my God, this time of year, it's fabulous. Graduations, weddings, all kinds of parties. Pickup trays. We do full, complete caterings. It's an interesting part of the business because we're able to go to people's homes, and that's kind of neat. I mean, you're actually, from someone that's been one of your customers for a long time, and now you're in their home. Wow. I mean, that's just pretty exciting. We get to work with some other companies like Madeline's Place in Corrales, who we frequent quite a bit, and the Italian American Club that has a great facility that we're hired out to do some catering there. So, that part of the business has been a slow expansion. Mainly because you really have to look at your crew and your staff and see how much you can bring in before they're taxed to the point where something else suffers for it. So we try and do growth on a slow level. We do more than Italian. We actually don't we're all culinary trained, so we can do any type of food. So we do barbecue, and Daniel's family, who's a tremendous leader in this community also. We do their annual company picnic every year at Haynes Park, and for about 400 people. So that's, we do a basic picnic. We do hot dogs and hamburgers and bratwurst and watermelon and corn on the cob and potato salad and macaroni salad. So, our catering company can do any type of food. Thank you. Yeah.
How many years has Joe's been in Rio Rancho?
Going on 12.
Okay. But it was something before.
It was the
Joe's.
Pasta Cafe. It was opened by a good friend of mine from Roswell. We went to high school together in New York, Andre Bonaiuto. He had a small place in Roswell called the Pasta Cafe at the mall. And then opened up here in 1999, and in the end of 99, beginning of 2000. I was involved in it kind of behind the scenes, and then I bought it in 2000. I kept the name Pasta Cafe for a couple of years, and then changed it to Pasta House, and a lot of my customers said, we just call it Joe's Place, so I finally put, Joe's Pasta House.
So being that you've been in there though for 12 years now, you've probably seen some ups and downs in just the market in general in Rio Rancho and the surrounding areas. How have you always remained to keep your doors open when a lot of other restaurants in town have it?
Well, I think it's that personal touch and service that's always so important. And then our menu is extensive enough to where we have from $8 to $20. So and anything in between. So we see it all the time. We see like when gas prices have now just climbed over the last couple of months, have climbed to almost $4 a gallon. We're selling more of our lower end part of the menu, but our seats are still filled. So that's very important. So I think the menu that we've looked at closely over the years on putting that together has enabled all types and stratas to come into the restaurant and enjoy an atmosphere of and good service. And you all can probably answer the same question when it comes to restaurant related. When you go to a restaurant, if the food is okay and the service is great, you probably go back. Right? So, you want to put both together, of course. You want great service and great food. But, if you go to a restaurant and the food is great, the service is terrible, you probably won't go back. Those are usually, you might go back twice. If the service is bad again, I won't go back. You really go there for the service. You go there for for someone to come up to it and so you can enjoy your experience based on service. And service, in my opinion, goes right to, the cleanliness of your bathroom. I mean, that's important too. That's all part of the service of any business that somebody walks into. It's the corner, you know what I mean? It's everything in place. I'm the kind of guy that always straightens out the picture on the wall. It drives me out of my mind. So if you look down, if you come into the restaurant and you look down, I drive my busters crazy. I said, straighten the tables. Straighten the tables, because the impression when someone walks through the door is immediate.
Yeah.
It's immediate. Everything that you look at is a reflection on what you're going to be doing. If your tables are crooked, well, then the service is probably crooked also. You know what I mean?
You mentioned you frequent Madeline's, but what are your favorite restaurants?
Oh, I have a few. The Roslers, I don't know if you know the Roslers. They have a few places in Albuquerque. In Rio Rancho, I love O'Hare's has been one of my favorite places forever. Miko at Turtle Mountain has been a good friend over the years. And that's something I want to touch on, by the way. You brought up another point. Noda's, unfortunately, is gone, and we miss them so much. They were my favorite sushi restaurant. The Roslers own Zinc and Savoy and Seasons. Those are three restaurants that I like to emulate. They do an incredible job of service also and atmosphere, and I like those three restaurants. One of the things that nobody asked, the business community here, I don't see competition in other restaurants with us. We all work together. I mean, somebody asked me for a pub, we know where to send them. Somebody asked me for a pizzeria, we know where to send them. Somebody asked me, you know what I mean? It's like we all are an incredible community, and we can sit in a room. I've sat in a room with you. We can sit in a room with 10 or 15 restaurateurs, and we're friends. I mean, we can laugh with each other, we can talk with each other, we can strategize with each other. We just did the Taste of Rio Rancho, which was a fabulous event where all restaurants could get together. So, if it's a piece of advice, whatever you feel as a competitor, become their friends. I mean, you can only help each other, you really can. Run out of time?
Almost. Any other questions?
What's your favorite thing to cook?
My favorite thing to cook would probably be my favorite thing to eat, and that's veal franchise. It's one of my favorites. It's a classic. I was trained in the classics of sauté, so the franchise or the marsalas or things like that. Sauté dishes are my favorites.
Well, Joe's does excellent catering jobs, and I take them with me. And some of the things that I like to do is when I take Joe's to a catering event, especially if it's in Albuquerque or if it's in another city, I think that this restaurant almost personifies Rio Rancho. And this is the way that when people taste the food, they say, "Oh, where'd you get this from?" And I say, I got it from Joe's Pasta House in Rio Rancho. "Oh, you know what? I never go up to Rio Rancho to eat." Well, here's a good reason to send people up to Rio Rancho, to get to track that, that gross receipts tax leakage of pulling business from Albuquerque, because this is a great place to send them, and that they're going to get taken care of. So, thank you, Joe, for coming in.
Thank you.